Solidarity, comrades, and welcome. Hi, comrades. I love these liberals reproducing their well ordered capitalist lives like a virus. It's time for the antidote. I agree, Comrade James. And hello, Falcone. Hello to everyone in Shalom. Shabbos just ended. Sun has gone down. Um, with July, damn right, land back. With July 4th coming up in just a few hours, actually, I wanted to talk about the origins of the American Empire. And I wanted to give my opinion at the end of it on a question. Is America worth saving? And I'm going to answer that question at the end of this. And I want everyone to, let me know their opinions on the subject, either here in the live chat or in the comments later. I want to have a dialogue about this. I want to come to a truth. And I think with the information presented here, we can come to a truth. Now, the American Empire, we all know. Oh, and before I get started, after I am done with my presentation and my answer, I want to hear y'all's opinions and y'all's answers and questions. And I want to present them here. So after I'm done with this presentation about the origins of the American Empire, I want y'all to either comment in the live chat or comment on the video later. So let's get into it. Where does America come from, right? So we all know that America was initially settled by French and when I say America, I also include Canada, by the way. It was settled by, well, I guess I shouldn't, but in the modern day, I do. But in the future, in the past, we're going to think of them as separate entities for this presentation. So, where does America come from? Well, the state of America comes from a very early day, 1492, really, when Columbus discovered the Caribbean islands. And well, people started coming to the West once they found out there was land there. Um, what they disregarded fully was the fact that people already lived there. Maybe they weren't at the same level of production, but people certainly already lived there. And, they settled this land. They created at first, very independent, mostly, extreme Puritan and Protestant sort of people, at Plymouth Rock and Roanoke and places like that. These people were Puritans that left the UK after the death of a Protestant leader and the ushering in of a Catholic leader who persecuted Protestants. So these Protestants first moved to the Netherlands, which was a republic at the time, a republic for the aristocracy. And they moved there first because it was high religious freedom there. It was a hotbed of Calvinism, and these people went there, and then their fear was they were losing their English culture. These people, their children were starting to only speak Dutch, and they started believing in Calvinist views instead of their version of Protestant and Puritanism. And they didn't like this. They didn't like this. So they heard about the quote unquote New World. It's only new to the Europeans. It's actually a very ancient world with ancient traditions. And They went there because, according to the Christian Bible, and I'm not speaking of the Orthodox version or the Hebrew Bible, also known as the Tanakh, speaking of the Western Latin Bible and the Puritan Bibles, English language, localized language versions, they made a clear point that people that weren't of God's chosen color, which they interpreted as white, were superior and that they had the right to enslave other people and to civilize other people and bring the word of God. That's how the Atlantic slave trade and the settling of these places was justified for Protestants mostly, and Catholics too in the South. So these Protestants first lived there in their autonomous communities. If you want to see an interesting, very interesting film with period correct language, brilliant acting, and music, this sort of puts into context this period of the 1600s of these colonialists and their mindset. Watch The Witch. It shows that these people wanted to be isolated in their religious fervor. And it shows how poisonous it was in a film like The Witch. But that's fiction, of course. Let's move on. So eventually, the British kingdom, the British crown, realized that all this land that they pushed indigenous people out of was bountiful. And to bring in some context of the British colonialism compared to the French, the British were all about pushing people out. Early on, and I say early on, the French were about coexisting. Now, is this right to put yourself in the middle of a situation and use your domineering imperialist forces to tell these people to insert yourself into their situation? No, but they didn't push them out. They were mostly a coexistent thing, a parasitic coexistence, but a coexistence nonetheless. Now, the British did not want coexistence at all. They wanted separation. And that's what they did. And the British took a lot of interest in this, especially with the discovery by the Europeans of tobacco and corn and all these other crops, cotton, and this land, this fruitful, bountiful land to grow it on. But there were people there. Well, they dealt with that through genocide, through coercion. Many indigenous tribes conceded to these new people, thinking that, in good faith, that they weren't going to do anything to them. They were going to live here in coexistence like other tribes have lived in coexistence with them. They were wrong. Something about the European condition demanded imperial colonialism. And what happened was that these people were murdered and their land stolen. And what arose were these aristocratic, mid-level aristocratic families and lower level aristocratic families from the UK, Britain, England specifically, that came to Canada and North America and the United States, America, to, take up this land that was taken by force. And they set up these state apparatuses, very autonomous, from the United Kingdom's empire. But still, governor generals, no taxes or anything like this. And they kept going west and north and south and taking more and more land. They stopped at the Appalachians at first, but they tried to encroach, and more and more and more. But then a war broke out between the imperialist nations, between the French and the British and many others on the European continent. And the French and the British in the Americas, it was truly the First World War fought in Africa, India, South America, Caribbean, North America. And the British and the French both enlisted the help of indigenous people through coercion and, lies about, leaving them alone. And this giant war created a massive toll in the British Empire, to which they won. They won the war and they took land and they took Canada and they solidified their control in the colonies. But these people, the British Empire realized, fuck, we have to pay for this somehow. Why not levy it on the people we were defending over there, quote unquote, aka the colonialists, by levying taxes on them? Now, this wasn't a big deal because the taxes were mostly done to the aristocrats. They didn't like it, but it was something that they could financially afford. Now, these aristocrats included people like the founding fathers of America, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, Ben Franklin. These people. They were the people who stole land. But what was another factor to this new colonial state? It was the African slave trade, justified through that same Protestant worldview and Catholic worldview, Christian worldview, I should say. And also a new burgeoning capitalist worldview, a new system. And they started taking people from Africa. The African people didn't go willingly. They stole them on crowded ships, where many died on the way, separated from their families and their cultures, forbidden to speak their native languages. They're brought over to this new place that apparently was stolen from other people who have been attacked by the white man. And they're forced into labor, sewing cotton with the advent of the cotton gin, tobacco, and other mostly agricultural needs, but also more domestic things. But it was an agricultural economy. And guess what happened? Guess what happened? This system was, since it was a pre-industrial age, was integral to the economics of the aristocracy. The way they were running things, they couldn't afford to pay farm work or to pay peasants or serfs or farm workers. It's much cheaper to have a slave. And they could do it because it was justified and through the name of their Gentile God. So what happened? Why did these people decide to create their own country, this aristocracy, this burgeoning bourgeoisie of this brand new system called capitalism? Well, it comes from the fact that the United Kingdom, earlier in the 1700s, earlier in the 18th century, had instituted a constitutional monarchy. It had happened in the 1600s, late 1600s, into the 1700s. It was equal to the liberal democracies of the age, with a very much figurehead king that has more power than the monarchs today, but still, for the time, it's very liberal and progressive. And this parliament decided to outlaw the Atlantic slave trade. Now, this didn't make the people who depended on slave trade very happy. George Washington not only depended on it for his economic reasons, but for his own teeth, with the teeth of slaves. Or Thomas Jefferson didn't want to lose his free rape harem. So they were very much for the slave trade. And Thomas Jefferson specifically was very pro agricultural economy because of this reason. There's another reason. The United Kingdom also voted on something that didn't allow people in their colonies to settle past the Appalachians because they had an agreement with the indigenous people of that region after the Spanish American War to lower conflict. But they said, no, we want more land. We want to take more, specifically the Ohio Valley, the modern Midwest. And you'll know that America's first war was in the Ohio Valley in the Midwest against the indigenous people by George Washington to take that land. Their motivations were that of people who wanted to take more land, keep their slaves, and keep importing slaves. And also upset about the fact they had to pay taxes for a war that protected their land and expanded their land. And the people of the 13 colonies didn't decide this. The farm workers, the craftsmen, they didn't decide this. It was the burgeoning bourgeoisie, the founding fathers of this country that did this. Now I'm coming to my conclusion. Now, when people say that they want to save America, I ask them, what part of America do they want to save? Because if it's the good parts of America, it doesn't involve the tradition of the rebellion of the bourgeoisie against the other bourgeoisie to keep their slaves and to keep expanding their settler colonialism. That's not the America I want to be proud of. America I want to be proud of is the America of Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, of Crazy Horse, of Sitting Bull. The history of the Chinese people who built the railroads. The history of W.E.B. Du Bois, the first black man to graduate from Harvard and a Communist Party member. And a professional athlete, musician, and political advocate, Paul Robeson. Black radicals of the mid to late 20th century, like Angela Davis, Huey P. Newton, Fred Hampton. The indigenous people that lived there. These are the people, the Latinos that were later colonized. These are the people who give culture to America. These are the people who give us our slang. These are the people who give us the basis of our music, even rock and roll, everything. So what part of America are you trying to say? If you're not one of these people that is a victim of the founding origins of America, then you don't have much to say about the future of it. You are an uninvited guest. And if these people allow us to stay, you should be happy. And what if they decide to separate into separate states? That is their decision. They're the victims of colonialism and imperialism, genocide and slavery. They deserve to decide their fate for their national liberation. Now, if they give us the option to live here, maybe we can call our section of it America. But whatever the people who are either unwillingly brought here or the people who are native to here have decided something else, you will go along with it. You will not dictate that to them. Yes, we are Marxists. We fight for all of the oppressed, including the white working class. But we also understand as Marxists, who are Leninists, who have studied Stalin and Mao, that national liberation and is required before any form of socialism can be built. And the national liberation is an expression of sovereignty and self determination. And these people will decide it. Unfortunately for you, you do not get to decide their fate. They do. And if you want to get rid of imperialism, you have to also get rid of its appendages, colonialism included. Now you have to realize this, and you have to really listen to these people. There are many people out there who advocate for a better system. And I implore to all of you who claim to want to save America in the name of socialism to maybe reconsider the fact that you really don't have a choice in whether or not a large section of this country is preserved or not, if not all of it. Now, I'm going to post a comment here that was done, and anyone who has any questions, please ask, or any complaints. But if you do, put them in the live chat now, or put them in the comments below. Yeah. So thank you. And if you're just watching this for the origins part, you can click away now if you want, but please don't watch more. Anyway, here is one of the comments that was left. Sorry, I'm busy. Just finishing my script on the Battle of Little Bighorn. If y'all want to see an indigenous perspective on the founding fathers, go look at the Falcon General. She is a Maoist. I do warn the ML. She is a Maoist, but a cool one. And she is indigenous. And I want you to listen. And she's putting up more and more and more content on indigenous matters. And her opinion matters more than mine or any of the fair-skinned people or any of the people that weren't invited here or came here. And I don't include the ones that didn't come here unwillingly. But yeah, see, she's putting out a video soon on the Battle of Little Bighorn. She focuses a lot on national liberation stuff in terms of indigenous folks. So please go check that out. So, I think I'm going to end it here. If anyone has any problems with what I said, please put a comment below. If you agree, put a comment down below. If you have an opinion, put it down below. And if you liked it, give it a like. And if you want more great content, subscribe. On Monday, I am putting out a video called Juan Posada, The Ideology of Trauma. And we're going to go into sort of why Posada came up with such bizarre and outlandish ideas. So, yeah, please look out for that. You can see it's scheduled already, so get ready. Jawad said, I don't know what to say. That's okay. That's okay. It's really a tough topic. But thank you all, and shalom, solidarity, comrades. God bless.